Good afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good afternoon. Opening day in Major League Baseball. We'll talk a little Guardians here in just a minute. There's close to an even amount of fans, analysts, everything that think the Browns are going to take Shedeur Sanders or the Browns are going to take Abdul Carter, assuming that Cam Ward is not available at number 2 when they draft. Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network, what he's hearing relative to the Browns.
I don't see any way that they can pull that off. Tennessee just seems like they're pretty much sticking and picking. So if Cam Ward's off the table, I know it's split. When you talk to people in the league, I've talked to some folks in the league who are connected to one side of that organization that say there's no way. They're not taking Shedeur. It's not happening. They're going to take Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and then they're gonna get one of these second group of quarterbacks. There's people that firmly believe that, and there's other people that have just drawn the connection between Shurmur and Stefanski and said, well, he's kind of got, that's someone he trusts and he knows and how he's wired and how he works and how he thinks, and I know he'd get a very, very high endorsement there, so they don't rule it out. So long story short, Rich, nobody has a clue what Cleveland's going to do. There's a lot of opinions all over the map, and there is nobody with real strong, conviction. It's led me to have strong conviction to say they're absolutely doing this and not that.
And again, that explains why you're hearing some people think Abdul Carter, some people think Shedeur, some people think Travis Hunter. Adam Schefter talking about what he's hearing with the Titans with the number 1 pick overall in the draft, who pick ahead of the Browns.
We've also heard the Titans general manager, Mike Borgonzi, say that he's open to anything. And so he's going to be listening to phone calls. It doesn't mean that the Giants will be able to make it up to 1. But I expect the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants both to make calls. And let's see if there's a team that can come up with an offer that the Titans can't pass up. Yes, the Titans absolutely do like Cam Ward. Yes, they're ready to take him. But these teams have 1 month to try to change Tennessee's mind and make an offer compelling enough to move Tennessee, which has a ton of holes on its roster, off the number 1 pick.
Yeah, Browns have some holes to fill as well. And it's interesting, the fact that Cam Ward worked out for the Browns privately with Jimmy Haslam and Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski tells you he has not been guaranteed to be the number 1 pick overall. So it's still a work in progress, and we'll see what happens. Former NFL defensive lineman Chris Canty with his thoughts on what the Browns need to do at quarterback.
The Cleveland Browns are in cap hell. They need a cost-effective option at quarterback. What are the cost-effective options? It's trading for Kirk Cousins or drafting Shedeur Sanders at 2nd overall. That's it. There's nothing else. There's nothing else that you would consider a cost-effective option. You trade for Kirk Cousins. The Atlanta Falcons are picking up most of the bill. If you draft Shedeur Sanders, he's on the rookie wage scale. So it makes sense in terms of what Cleveland's cap situation is going to be for the foreseeable future to go with one of those 2 guys. And to me, if you made me pick between the 2, I'm rocking with Shedeur Sanders over Kirk Cousins. I think that's the best plan for Cleveland.
What you just said is the exact feeling I had. I almost feel like, wait, how did we not all realize this was exactly what was going to happen the entire time? Because I have changed my mind a million times, right? Oh, Russ is not going to be on the Giants. He's going to be on the Browns. Oh, Rodgers really wants to go to the Giants. That's what I've said. And the more you lay it out, it's like, wait, the Myles Garrett comments can only mean Shedeur.
No, they could also mean a different rookie on a rookie scale as well. So it'll be, it'll be something to keep an eye on. Remember the Jalen Milroe, Tommy Rees connection. That is legit. So we'll see what happens. Tanner Bybee was scheduled to be the opening day starter today for the Guardians in Kansas City. He was scratched earlier today, food poisoning. So it will be Ben Lively that will be getting the start in the opener against the Royals. Also, games will be broadcast. The Guardians, they're doing the streaming thing in conjunction with MLB.com. They reached an agreement with most of the cable outlets earlier today, so the games will be available pretty much on any local cable outlet that you have. Let's listen in. This is from that Guardians MLB combo, mic'd up in spring training. Some interesting stuff.
Stephen Kwan is mic'd up. He's ready to go out in left field. They gotta let you catch your breath, man.
Yeah, I know. You guys are gonna hear a bunch of mouth breathing from me.
After legging out that double, are you even more popular when they see you mic'd up now?
Yeah, I'm kind of getting chirped down here, but that's all right.
Still a little sun up there, starting to burn
That's
off
about as little as you'll ever see.
My first spring training in 22, I had a sun ball, but I had my glasses on my head, and then I dropped the ball. I said, oh, I'm probably getting sent down.
Oh, is it gonna drop in? You betcha. Ralphie Velasquez delivers.
Yes, sir. Just stay inside the ball.
Yeah.
Adjust.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. How about that play, huh?
That one hurt. I didn't think it was gonna drift that much. Golly.
Rowdy loves to talk. We go way back. We got drafted with the Blue Jays together early on.
That's a dream that I've had since I was a little kid. Thank you, guys.
And again, mic'd up with the Guardians. They did reach an agreement with most cable operations. The Guardians, 2 more games this weekend in Kansas City. Then they head west for a couple of series before the home opener, April 8th against the White Sox. Also, some movement along the roster. These players were put on the 15-day injured list. So the 15-day, not the 60, which is good news for Shane Bieber coming back from Tommy John. Also, Slates Coney, Trevor Steffen, John Means, and Eric Sabrowski, all on the 15-day injured list to start the season. Cavs ended that West Coast trip. Wasn't a great one. Ended up with a couple of wins, though. They'll host the Spurs tonight. Only 10 games left in the regular season. Brian Windhorst, NBA national analyst, has to be somewhat of a concern for the Cavs as they get ready for the NBA playoffs.
Yeah, I look at Donovan and say I'm a little bit worried about the way he's shooting, but it's not just that, and it's not just a groin injury. He's not been the same dynamic offensive player since the All-Star break, and his overall field goal percentage is down too, but most of it is the three-point shooting. And the three-point shooting is such a weapon for the Cavs and a weapon for him. He takes 9 a game. This is not somebody who's just putting up 2.
And again, Cavs will be at home against the Spurs. Sam Amico, hoopswire.com, and Full Court Cleveland will be along a little later in the show to talk Cavs. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We begin talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd, host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Straight ahead after this timeout. Stay with us.
We're out here busting common lottery myths by talking to real players just like you. And you, sir, what's your name? Where are you from?
Tom Burrell from Lexington, Ohio.
I'm playing Powerball. I use auto pick when I pick my numbers. Do I have better, worse, or the same odds?
Same odds.
I'd say better.
I still think worse. Same odds.
He's got it. It's the same. Auto pick, numbers you pick, same odds. Either way. He has it. He has it, folks. He already knows. You can learn more by going to ohiolottery.com/knowtheodds.
We begin talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Adam Schefter. Abdul Carter will not work out at Penn State's Pro Day Friday. That's per his agent, Drew Rosenhaus. Still finishing up rehab on the shoulder injury he had for the Boise State game. May do a workout for teams sometimes in mid-April. Also important to note that he wasn't measured at the Combine because he had to leave the Combine early for medicals and didn't get verified numbers in Indianapolis. Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd, host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. So, Jeff, why do you think the Browns should just draft Abdul Carter? Are you at all concerned about the medicals?
Well, this was always going to be the question, was going to be this key date of March 28th, the Penn State Pro Day. But there's several ways to look at this. We're in an era now where guys necessarily don't have to do anything during the draft cycle. Marvin Harrison Jr. set that precedent last year, wasn't injured. So a little bit of a different story, sir, for Abdul Carter. I will begin all of this by saying Abdul Carter has not missed a college game yet. So we are talking about a player who's dealing with some injury rehab right now in March. I'm sure there's a lot of players in the NFL right now who are kind of going through the same thing. They mentioned the shoulder first. If it's just the shoulder, was there some sort of surgery? What exactly was the extent of it? If it's the foot, he is going to go back, and anybody gets flagged for a medical when you're at the combine, you do have to go back out to Indianapolis before the draft, and they run you guys through all the same tests again. And then basically the league has a one unified doctor that basically submits a report that all 32 teams get the same report. So, it could be we're not working out till we get our medical recheck, which isn't a terrible idea either. There could be assurances for Abdul Carter that, he doesn't necessarily need to work out. You just heard Adam Schefter say Giants would be interested. The Patriots would be interested. Certainly the Browns at 2 above both of those teams are interested. It definitely raises a little bit of the concern because, we don't know where anything is at. I think the medical recheck now becomes the next important thing. And I don't think we really get a day on that. It's kind of one of those things. Well, the rechecks are in. Here is the deal. They don't have like a set date with all that. But what I look at is, the financial investment into Myles Garrett. What I'm saying to myself is defensively, I could have Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter for the next 5 seasons. And, that could essentially be my defense. Certainly a lot of moving parts from year to year. And if you look at it as a 5-year plan, a lot of moving parts over a 5-year plan. But, as Myles maybe starts to come back down to earth as almost being human like the rest of us, should be the time that Abdul Carter is ascending. People have taken knocks on Carter and say he's too small. Well, he's bigger coming into the draft than Von Miller was. He hasn't done this his entire career. He hasn't played on the edge. Well, same player from Penn State, Micah Parsons, did the same type of thing. He was primarily, and he didn't really play edge at Penn State. Dallas was in a need, and they just kind of threw him out there and kind of were like, oh, well, he can do this too, which totally changed, the landscape of Micah Parsons' career. You can stand him up. You can still keep McGuire on the field. You could still keep Alex Wright on the field. You could stand Abdul Carter up and just basically have him look for a gap on the interior that he's going to shoot. I think he is just so unique, and people aren't going to understand if he doesn't test just how athletic he is. But Penn State is pretty legit about putting their information out there, where they were one of the first schools that used to release their pro day information. They would literally put out a sheet showing how everybody tested. So in the spring, they had Abdul Carter in like 4.45 range, 4.48 range, which is a full 1/10 of a second faster than Myles was at the time. He's just really unique. And I think the thing that I really like about him is even if he doesn't just blow it out of the park as, an absolute stud in the NFL, he's still a 10+ sack guy in the NFL year in, year out. He achieves his full ceiling. You're pairing essentially 2 guys on the field together at the same time that could combine for 30 sacks a season.
Yeah, he played basically with one arm against Notre Dame in that playoff game and was really effective. So
Best player on the field.
Yeah, I watched that game and I'm like, yeah, I'm in. This is interesting as well. So this is mock draft roundup from people from different sites that have done it within the past 4 or 5 days. Matt Miller, ESPN, has the Browns taking Abdul Carter at 2. Josh Edwards, CBS Sports, Abdul Carter at number 2. Ben Standing from The Athletic has him taking Shedeur Sanders at number 2. Chad Reuter, NFL.com, has him taking Abdul Carter at number 2. If we flip it, they come back at 33. Matt Miller has him taking Tyler Shuck. Josh Edwards has him taking Josh Simmons. Ben Standing had him trading into the first round to get Kelvin Banks, a tackle. So they traded up from 33 to 29, and then Chad Reuter had him taking Josh Connerly. It's kind of interesting. I don't know that I like the idea of taking a tackle that early because there's some playmakers that you need to get on this roster, especially if you're not going to have an elite quarterback play.
Well, let's be completely honest here right now. Right now, this team needs not 1, not 2, but 3 quarterbacks. Any way you slice it. Rookies, veterans. Right now, with Nick Chubb still not on the roster, all things pointing that probably there's going to be a reunion, you probably need, a veteran running back and 2 rookie running backs. Wide receiver, 1 would be great. Most likely you want 2. Tight end, most likely you need 2. I'm not going to poo-poo the need for an offensive tackle. I do think the Browns would like to give an opportunity for DeJuan Jones. I think they think there's a chance for him if he can take the left tackle job and maybe make it a long-term thing. It can save them some money because he'll probably never get paid as a big-time left tackle because he does have the run-blocking deficiency due to his size. But they do need a tackle. There's no question about that. And, of course, keeping all this in mind, we haven't talked about the defensive side of the ball yet either. So I really think, and this offensive line is constructed essentially for 2025. There is not anybody who's got a contract after that other than DeJuan Jones. So your left guard, your center, your right guard, your right tackle, all would be eligible for free agency in 2026. One thing that certainly would scare me about bringing in a rookie quarterback, we can't just assume that if all these guys come back healthy at their given ages, everybody's just going to fall back in line. And this is going to be the offensive line we were used to in 21, 22, 23. So that does give me some pause and hesitation towards a rookie quarterback. But long term, yes, a wise move here would be a left tackle, but I can't disagree with you. Who's going to score touchdowns for this team? Everybody just says, oh, well, you have to get the quarterback because, look how many points he scored last year. And this is how many times. Well, he's got to have something to work with. He's got an offensive line that if you take DeJuan Jones out of it, you're probably going to call old. He's got a running back room that right now that just consists of Jerome Ford, who's a decent back. That's about the best we can do there. Jerry Jeudy was great last year. After that, in the wide receiver room, a lot of questions. David Njoku, the thing with David Njoku and why I keep pressing so hard for them to bring in more into the tight end room is when David Njoku is missing time or David Njoku is banged up and still playing, the offense struggles. David brings a uniqueness to this offense because of the fact that he is really difficult to cover. Safeties are too small, linebackers are too slow. David exposes mismatches. So you really kind of need to find a guy that can play in line if you don't have David. And you also need somebody that can contribute somewhat as a receiver like David does if David is injured or missing time or not 100%. There are a lot of needs on this offense right now. And I got to be honest with you. We are, the NFL draft 1 month from now will be over. The Browns have a lot of moves to make. And I don't think 10 draft picks is going to solve it all, between, round 3, round 4 of free agency, a body or two, but there's still a lot of work to be done here, and you really got to find some skill players.
All right, before we go to break, and I'm curious, Travis Hunter, I keep hearing people talking about him playing both ways, and I know you have some of the similar concerns I do. I don't know if you can look at the problems you have when you ask a guy that's a hybrid linebacker safety to play. And this is the ultimate hybrid that you're going to ask to take on, both sides of the ball.
There's a lot of concerns. First things first is you're taking this step up to the NFL level. And the other thing is there's not as much time in the NFL as far as meetings, this, that, and the other thing. All of this, there is a players association. All of this is governed and, mandated and structured. So what meetings is he going to on Wednesday? What meetings is he going to on Thursday if you want to propose this play both ways? He's got to learn 2 playbooks, a defensive one and an offensive one. I think anybody who's looking at him in the top 10, look, he's 6 foot 180. We're not going to have legit testing numbers from him until April 4th. And who knows? These Colorado kids are newer. They're in vogue. Wouldn't stun me if Travis Hunter says, I don't need to test if other guys don't need to test. But I think you play him at wide receiver. It's the easiest transition to make. And especially if you're Cleveland, he doesn't have to come in and be the guy to catch 100 receptions in year 1. Although, if you were drafting a wide receiver at number 2 overall, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, these are the expectations of drafting a wide receiver that high. He's only 6 feet, 180. So you understand, hey, this is class just didn't work out. So maybe his value is a little higher than it should be. But if it's me, I'm playing him on offense. And the other thing is, look, if there's 30 seconds to go and you just want to put him at the back of your defense and say, look, just play free safety and look for the ball. You've done this in your entire life. That's fine. But the other thing is, if you're trying to do this and have him play both ways, he gets hurt. You just lost 2 significant pieces to your team. So who's got a wide receiver that can step up and contribute like Hunter does? Because if you did, you wouldn't have drafted him. And then on defense, you're missing him. So you didn't maybe bring in another defensive back. So now you're down playing a 4th, 5th, on your depth chart defensive back. You want Travis Hunter. You want Travis Hunter to deliver the best he can. Just play him at wide receiver at least year 1. And then you look at it and see how it goes from there. But, it's not going to work in the NFL. It's just not. I mean, guys have tried it. It's just not the best thing. You have 53 guys. You should be able to find enough talent to fill in a cornerback role and just let this guy excel on the offensive side.
Jeff Lloyd, host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd, host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
I was just thinking that this media narrative around Shedeur Sanders and why he's a reach at 2 for the Browns, but he's not a reach at 3 for the Giants. When the Browns and the Giants both need a quarterback equally. Both coaches and GMs are on the hot seat, but it seems like the media is trying to push Shedeur Sanders to New York when Cleveland needs him just as bad. I feel that the media just doesn't want the Browns to be relevant. They don't want to have to cover the Browns. And that may be them still being all upset about the Deshaun Watson trade. I don't know, but I think it's pretty ridiculous because the Browns need a quarterback just as bad as the Giants. Those are my thoughts, so hopefully we have a good draft and go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jeff, it is kind of interesting, but I think a lot of it is there's a wide variance of what people think of Shedeur Sanders and his ability to play in the NFL. People think he has a high floor and a pretty low ceiling.
I think the thing, and this is where it differs from last year where you had 6 quarterbacks go so high in round 1. If you're a team like Cleveland, obviously you were monitoring Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders the entire time. Eventually, you came out of the combine, and this seemed to be a consensus for a lot of teams. It became that Cam Ward was the best quarterback in this class. There was no longer a discussion of who was. And so if you're a team like Cleveland and you just spent all this time and you established that Cam Ward is the better quarterback. Now, last year you had teams like Atlanta. You had teams like Denver who said, we're not in the Caleb talks. We're not in the Jaden Daniel talks. So we're going to look at guys that may be more in our range. When it's just 2 quarterbacks, you firmly established that you thought that Cam Ward was the better player. Now, if you say, well, here, let's say in Shedeur, you got 6 guys in that room who raise their hand and say, didn't we just say he's not as good as the other guy? So how do you just all of a sudden then say, well, we'll take him at 2 when you basically just spent weeks convincing yourself that he is not as good as the guy that's going to go 1 pick before him? It makes for a different scenario. As far as it's not okay for the Browns, but it's okay for the Giants. Every front office is different. And look at it right now. Shedeur Sanders today, if he walks into the New York Giants locker room, it is Jameis Winston, it is Russell Wilson. The expectations are extremely low. We know what the expectations would be for Shedeur Sanders if he goes number 2. It's been tough, and I kind of compared the Shedeur Sanders situation a little bit to Bronny James, and we're going to go through this in probably the next year, most likely 2, with Arch Manning. When you have these legacy kids whose parents are so still involved in the game, part of the game, there's a respect factor that national media is trying to keep here. You don't want to, get yourself into a bad spot with a guy who is so important to the game. So maybe they're not getting, evaluated and spoken about as wide open as maybe a Jackson Dart would. So, it's weird to know where the truth really lies with Shedeur Sanders. But I am of the firm believer that I think when we talk about Shedeur Sanders, we say maybe Shedeur Sanders is a little bit better, has played a little bit more than Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart, as opposed to saying Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, either one, you're good.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting as well. So the Browns had a private workout with Cam Ward. The Titans will attend a private workout for Cam Ward tomorrow. Sources say that after Ward worked out for the Browns, those were his only 2 private workouts for top 2 teams. Also, Colorado's Shedeur Sanders has workouts for the Titans and the Browns in the days following his pro day. You learn more at private workouts than you do at pro days, without question. The other thing I would say is that tells you that the Titans, while probably leaning towards Cam Ward, haven't said it's Cam Ward, because one, they wouldn't have let Cam Ward work out for the Browns privately. They would have told him, yeah, we're planning on taking you number one. And two, they wouldn't go to a private workout with Shedeur Sanders if they knew they were taking Ward number one.
I'm not sure where I'm at on that. I mean, Tennessee showed up with the video and the social media team.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, if that's their guy, it's going to be rolled out like 8:02 before the first pick is announced through the Tennessee Titans social media team. Like, that's the part that seemed weird to me. I mean, are you doing your due diligence? Because, look, anything could happen in the next 4 weeks. God forbid somebody does something stupid as a 22 or a 23-year-old could, which could shake up the entire top part of this draft. And that's why you want to do the private workouts, because the pro day, it's not much different than the combine. Everybody's trying to in their zone. It's literally the job interview. The workouts are a little different. And like, I literally talked to one guy associated with an NFC East team. He's like, I want to see how he interacts with the guy who hands him his towel to wipe his brow. I want to see how he interacts with the guy who's wiping down his balls before the workout. Because, like, you just want to see if this guy, and especially with the quarterback position, is he a guy that just basically owns the room? And, everybody gravitates to him, and he just has that vibe to him. As far as the Browns, look, Jimmy Haslam, and for the most part, Jimmy has learned to become, hey, this is not my gig. I pay the bills. I want a good franchise. But when it's important, like 2018, I want to meet these young men, because look, at the end of the day, it's Jimmy Haslam and the quarterback that are in business. The coaches, the front office, they can all go and come. It's the quarterback and Jimmy Haslam that ultimately have the relationship. And Jimmy going out now and trying to get to know these guys, if these guys are the guys, this is basically what Brook Park would be based upon. So wanting to meet Cam Ward face-to-face, get an idea of what type of personality he is. Wanting to meet Shedeur Sanders face-to-face, get an idea of what type of guy he is, what type of personality he has. I understand why Jimmy is involved here. And the other thing is we've done this a couple of times. And in 2018, technically we shouldn't be looking for a quarterback here in 2025. What I did in 2022, technically I should be looking for a quarterback here in 2025. So if these decisions are so paramount and have so much stake on the state of the franchise going further, this is a time as an owner. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm involved, but I want to be there.
All right, before I let you go, Browns clearly need a quarterback. Do you think they go back into the Kirk Cousins business now that it's basically Carson Wentz and a lot of lesser quarterbacks available?
There's one thing I think that's a holdup there. If the Browns were to make a move, say today, say 5 days from now, for Kirk Cousins, what it tells me is the Cleveland Browns told Kirk Cousins, we're not taking a quarterback at 2. And then Kirk says, all right, I'm interested. I will drop the no trade clause. Let's see what can get worked out. I'm not giving Atlanta any pick in 2025. I will give you something in 2026 with the ability to grow in round value by how much Kirk Cousins plays. Look, there still is the TV spectacle to this. And the league will not let any money go away. So the league would not be thrilled if that draft starts on April 24th and everybody already knows for a week, 2 weeks, a month, Cam Ward's going 1, Abdul Carter or Shedeur Sanders is going 2. The league doesn't want that. They still want some drama. They want to make sure at least that people look. That's the power hour, obviously, not the 11 o'clock when the last picks of the first round are going off. It's that 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock where all the TV ratings, the commercials, everything. The league still wants some drama behind it. But if the Browns were to make a move for Kirk Cousins today, that means that they basically told Kirk Cousins, let's get going on this because we're not going quarterback at 2.
Jeff Lloyd from Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report, is always great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
Couple weeks to go. Everybody enjoy opening day.
All right. Appreciate it, Jeff. As always, great stuff. Jeff Lloyd from Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We continue talking Browns. Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, straight ahead. Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Colin Cowherd talking about the Browns and which quarterback they should go after Russell Wilson signed with the Giants earlier this week.
It does appear Cleveland, and I think this is a good fit, is going to take Shedeur Sanders. So Cam Ward's going to go number 1. Shedeur Sanders, Cleveland's going to go number 2. The Giants got wind of it, and they signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, and they're probably in the Travis Hunter, who's the best pure athlete in the draft ballpark. And I was thinking about this morning. The Giants have really become the Cleveland Browns, where I'm dead serious, where I like the offensive head coach. Stefanski won 11 games, rotated 4 quarterbacks, and got to the playoffs. That's all I've ever needed to see. He's a good coach. Brian Daboll won a playoff game with Daniel Jones. That's all I need to know. The rest of the organizations are trouble. I like the coach. They've got some good defensive players, and they are a sideshow at quarterback. The difference is this morning, Cleveland's going to get Shedeur Sanders. The Giants are stuck with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. So Cleveland is now a better version of the Giants. The last time Cleveland was legitimate and stable at quarterback was Bernie Kosar, mid-'80s, won 5 straight. We got 5 straight playoff appearances. Total stability. Never been stable since.
With that, let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. And Lance, that's accurate. They haven't had stability at the quarterback position since Bernie. And you can say what you want to say about Baker Mayfield. Was one really good year and one not so good year.
Yes, it just goes to show you, no matter what level it is, how important the quarterback position is. Not only for, obviously, to move on in the playoffs, but just that's this ability of keeping the same offense and the receivers and the running backs and the linemen and the defense. That's all affected by the quarterback play. Your receivers are better when you have a better quarterback. Your run game's better when defense has to stop the pass. The defense gets better because they're up and they get to rush the passer a little bit more because they're winning. So the quarterback position is vital, and you can see because I know the Browns had a terrible year last year, but that roster was not 3-14. A lot of that comes down to quarterback play. So if you can fix that quarterback play or just become stable, get a guy you can win with, you can be better or competitive really, really fast.
So this is from PFF, and it's early and late round options for every team's biggest draft need. The Browns, they say their biggest draft need is quarterback. Option 1 on day 1 is Shedeur Sanders for Colorado. Day 3 option, Riley Leonard from Notre Dame. I know you are a Sanders guy. What do you think of that as far as day 1, day 3 options for the Browns?
Well, I'm actually Riley Leonard he's great feet, but I actually have 2 guys that if it's going to go day 3 and they're going to go later, I like Tyler Shuck. I think he's fantastic. I think he's had a great end of the season combine type thing, and I like Brady Cook out of Missouri, another super competitive guy. Both guys have pretty good feet. So does Riley Leonard. But I just tell you what, that Tyler Shuck, I know he's everybody always tells me how old he is, and I appreciate that. But if you're talking about a guy who's 25, 26 years old, and he plays 10 years, he's 36 years old, and he gives you great 10 years, I don't know. That makes sense to me. I tried not to look at the age, but if you're talking about a guy on day, if they don't go with Shedeur Sanders on, with the second pick in the first round, then I would look to Tyler Shuck, and I would look to Brady Cook in later rounds. Obviously, what's going to happen with Jackson Dart, I think he's my number 3 in terms of what the Browns need, but Tyler Shuck and Brady Cook over the last 2 months have checked a lot of boxes for me with their competitiveness, their ability to make throws. They both have good feet. So those are the guys I would go with in later rounds. I think they're really, really good football players.
A name that you keep hearing connected to the Browns some is Jalen Milroe, obviously because Tommy Rees, the new offensive coordinator, coached him in college. Do you see the connection there? Could you see – I mean, Milroe's a guy that's incredibly athletic, can throw the ball a ton, is fast, can run. If you can teach him to throw a football, 15, 20 yards accurately, you probably have a guy that's going to play quarterback in the NFL for a decade.
I'll tell you what, Jaden Milroe is an interesting breakdown for me. So I was breaking down Samuel Munden, linebacker, who was one of my favorite guys on film. A guy just flies around. And I watched him against Alabama, and Alabama comes out, and they are just on fire. And he made some really good throws and some really good reads. Another thing I like about Milroe is that he went to the Senior Bowl, was working on his fundamentals, his mechanics, and just had a terrible Senior Bowl. Didn't throw the ball very well. And then he threw the ball very well his pro day, and his footwork looked a lot better. His mechanics looked a lot better. Talk about a super athletic guy trying to learn from the pocket. You know, the guy you can look at is there's two guys, right? Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Guys who didn't throw it great, but had great tools, great feet. And those two guys have turned out to be NFL MVPs because of their athleticism. The things that, you know, Milroe can't do, you can teach him. And the things that you can't teach him, he can do. So, if he's a later round pick, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I think he can do everything you want. He's not, just like with Lamar Jackson, kind of set that tone. It's not a guy who's just going to run. He can throw the football, and it shows when you watch when I watch these cut-ups of some of these defenses. He's a good football player and a very good quarterback.
So this is interesting as well. Most underrated signing in 2025 for the Browns in free agency. And they go with Jerome Baker. His last 23 games, here's his production. 139 tackles, 20 pressures, 3.5 sacks, 3 turnovers, and you see, the passer rating against. So it's a guy that can do a little bit of everything from the linebacker spot.
Well, it's really interesting. Show my age here, but I actually remember watching him on film at Benny. So it tells you how long I've been in the game and watching these guys. So, Jerome Baker, for me, there's two things that come with Jerome Baker. One is he's got a great leadership quality. He plays with a nasty edge, and he's a veteran, and he runs very well. So he can fit in this defense very, very well that Jim Schwartz likes to run. Another thing it tells me is it's a question. It worries me a little bit about JOK, and it tells me that they're a little concerned with JOK's future, what it is. Losing JOK, regardless of who you sign, is a huge, huge loss if he's unable to play. He's a difference maker at linebacker. But what they've done with Hicks and now Baker, and then they go out and draft a guy who I think the guys who best fit the Browns scheme are going to be available on day 2 and 3 at linebacker position. At least they'll have some veteran presence there, guys who are going to be great practice guys, great locker room guys that know the game of football. They understand what the offenses are trying to do. So if you lose a guy with incredible ability like JOK, not that Baker's not super talented, because he is, but he's also a veteran, and him and Hicks and Diabate and these guys that I thought, came along. I thought Diabate came along really well. Kind of shears up that linebacker position if something were to happen to JOK and he can't play for the Browns.
So one of the things the Browns need, especially if they're going to have a young quarterback, playmakers. So you need some running backs, you need some wide receivers. If you're Andrew Berry, where do you address running back and wide receiver? Those are two big needs. And where in the draft, what rounds do you think you can get, a running back that can make an impact and a wide receiver that can make an impact as a rookie?
Well, I'll tell you, so I would, running back wise, you have all these backs, and there's backs that are home run hitters. Obviously starts with Genty, Henderson. Those guys are on the top of my list. But in terms of what the Browns need to help their quarterback, I would say a guy like Caleb Johnson makes a ton of sense to me. And here's why. Caleb Johnson may not hit the home run, but Caleb Johnson's going to give you second 4, second 5, a whole bunch. And if you think about Nick Chubb, I don't think he's a home run hitter, Nick Chubb was. But even Nick Chubb, if you look back to his short runs, they're always 4 to 6 yards. That puts the position, the quarterback in a great position, and that puts the offensive coordinator in a great position. So they need a guy like Caleb Johnson. I think you can get him on day 3. Now, if I'm looking for a skill guy that needs touches, you're talking about a guy like Luther Burden. I think you'd have to go in the second round with him, but he's the guy, the touch guy in space that the Browns need. If they're going later rounds, a guy who just ran a 4.8, and it absolutely means nothing to me because I watch him, is Restrepo from Miami. He's a guy who will probably be late in day 3 because of that 40 time. Watch him on film. He makes a lot of guys who are really fast miss. He's a good football player. So they need a space guy. I think they can get that. If they want an elite guy, I think they got to go early with Burden or trade back in. I think Caleb Johnson's the perfect running back type. Obviously, there's a ton of really good backs, but when I think of, Scadaboo and these guys, I'm looking for a power guy that can get them to second 5. Kind of boring, but I think that's what this offense needs to keep them ahead of the sticks.
When you look at offensive line, do you think that's another position they address in this draft? Especially, I'm looking at tackle because DeJuan Jones has been kind of beat up. I know they signed Cornelius. Do you think they address tackle in this draft?
Well, there's two guys that obviously the Calvin Banks kid out of Texas is a guy I like because he can move his feet so well. There's some other guys as well. Kid out of Minnesota is pretty good. There's Gray Zabel, the kid from North Dakota State. He's a guard inside. Those guards are getting older. The center's getting older. Postic's getting older. Gray Zabel can play all three positions. I think he'll be inside because he's not real long. But there's a lot of obviously, Will Campbell out of LSU is another great tackle. But, yeah, I think they're going to have to figure out what they're doing at that left tackle position. Is DeJuan Jones the guy? Now, if DeJuan Jones, who came off injury last year, I think he is the answer if he comes in shape and is ready to go. I think he can be an anchor tackle at that left spot for a long time. I think Conklin's got some good years in him. So if they believe in Jones, then you gotta help inside. I know they got Zinter last year, but they need to address that too. I think Gray Zabel is a great guy. He's so tough, had such a great Senior Bowl. But yeah, that's another position they got to figure out. And if DeJuan Jones is going to be the guy, then he's got to be committed to keeping his weight where it needs to be at that height, because when he's in playing shape, he's as good as anybody at that left tackle spot, especially in pass protection.
Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, film breakdown, video analysis of some of the linebackers in this year's draft. Sports for CLE. Be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Time to take a little film breakdown, video analysis of the linebacker position. Lance, we talked a little bit last segment about them signing Jerome Baker and JOK. So these are guys that would fit the scheme and kind of be productive with Jim Schwartz as the defensive coordinator.
Well, this first guy you have here, you have Jahad Campbell. He's a kid out of Alabama. He's a kid that has amazing length, right? He's 6'3", he's 235. He can play multiple positions. He ran a 4.52 at the combine, which is electrical time, which is really, really fast. You got a kid named Jeffrey Bassa out of Oregon, and then Samuel Munden out of Georgia. So three guys. There's a lot of guys, but these three guys are guys that will be available on day 2, day 3. I think Campbell's a guy, obviously, he's going to be a day 2 guy because of his physical measurements. Munden's a guy who'll probably be a late day 3 guy, but he's a super talented guy. And then I think Jeffrey Bassa might be the best scheme fit of them all, the kid out of Oregon.
So Campbell is from Alabama, 6'3", 235 pounds. When you look at him, what do you see when you look at him with the tape?
Well, this is off the bus guy, right? So you're going to see him here. He does a lot of different things. So here he is in space. You're going to see his ability to change direction, short area burst. He arrives at the ball very angry. He's a really sure tackler. He blitzes well. He plays multiple positions. You can see him fill there. So when he sees what he sees, he pulls the trigger and goes. Now he's at the rush end because he's 235 pounds. He's very, very good off the end. He's got a relentless motor, so he can do a lot of the different things that Jim Schwartz likes to do. The thing that separates him, obviously, that makes him kind of a first-round guy is his size and length, right? So he's a guy who had a 127-inch broad jump. He ran a 4.52 40, but he also had a 1.53 split, which tells you how incredibly explosive in short area quickness. He's really good in coverage. He's really good at blitzing. He's a guy you probably have to take at day 2 in that second round because of those physical measurements. But this is a guy who can really play. Again, when you play at Alabama, you're a linebacker at Alabama, recruited by Saban. This is a guy who can play, probably be an anchor linebacker for 10 years in the NFL just because of that position flexibility.
So the next guy, and you mentioned the guy from Oregon, Jeffrey Bassa, a really good fit into what Jim Schwartz likes to do. 6'1", 232 pounds. What do you see when you look at Bassa?
Well, Boss is the guy that I love. He's one of my favorite breakdowns. You're going to see him here. He blitzes, incredibly good blitzer. He gets really, as my dad used to say, he gets skinny in the hole, which makes him hard to block. Then he does a great job with his hands and arms and rips underneath people because he's only 6'1", which is amazing. That's undersized, but he's like a little bit of an undersized. He's a true hybrid linebacker. Now you're going to see him in coverage. He does a great job in coverage, closing, using the opposite arm when he's in pass coverage. The thing you like about this guy is he's got a relentless motor. So his cover skills are elite. He's a great blitzer. He's got really fluid hips, which means he can cover even bigger slots, tight ends, backs. He was the leader of a Dan Lanning defense. Obviously, Dan Lanning being a Saban disciple, guys who really stress defense and fundamentally sound defense. This is a guy had 236 career tackles, 14 tackles for a loss. He's going to be a really good player. Probably slipped to early in day three because of his height, and he only ran a 4.6. This is an elite guy who is a football player. He's the linebacker you like. He's angry when he arrives at the football, and I really enjoyed his film.
So the last guy that we're going to look at, another guy that played on a defense that was really good collegiately from Georgia, Mondon, 6'2", 225 pounds. What do you see when you look at Mondon?
Well, Mondon's a guy, it's interesting. You see him here, he reads this quick screen, he's going to get out there. Now, this is a guy who plays at Georgia. These SEC linebackers, this SEC front seven, they're different. They run different, their size, their length. So this is a guy that'll probably be around late day three. I will say this after watching all his film. He's probably a better athlete right now than he is a football player. However, when he gets in the right system, which this would be the best system, he relies on instincts. And there's not a defense in the NFL that relies on instincts more than Jim Schwartz's defense. Jim Schwartz is going to get you set up and allow you to run to the football. He's going to allow you to believe what you see and then go get it. And that's a big thing for defenders because a lot of times defenders have to read certain guys and they end up playing slow because they're thinking. And once you're thinking, your feet aren't moving. Mondon's a guy, when he gets it moving, he's as good as any linebacker in the country. And he might be the fit the Browns are looking for because he kind of gives you those JOK vibes with his length and his ability to play in space. All these guys. Mondon's a guy who'll probably be around late day three. He's another guy, just a really awesome, violent football player who fit really well in Schwartz's scheme.
When you look at these guys, do you expect the Browns to draft a linebacker and kind of add to that room, if you will? Again, they appear to be operating under the assumption they can't count on Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah because they went out and they signed Baker. You got Hicks, you have Diabate. Do you think they add a young guy to that room?
Well, I think they do, and the reason why is because I think some of the needs of the Browns, tight end, lineman, some of these guys, linebacker, there's some really good depth. And not only that, but the Browns are at the position, everybody says you draft players. I agree you draft players, but if the players are equal and they match your system, take those guys, right? And Mondon, for example, Mondon's a guy who would be around in later rounds, 4, 5, 6. Why not take a guy with such a high ceiling that fits your scheme and can come in and play right away? And I think they can address, tight end's another spot, linebacker, offensive tackle. There's a lot of great interior linemen, rush guys, safeties. There's positions that are deep in this draft that the Browns need, so they can address so many issues at so many positions and get really quality players. It'll be interesting. I think if they draft a linebacker, it tells you a lot about JOK. I will say that. But yeah, I do see them taking a guy who has a really high ceiling with great measurables late in the draft.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Cleveland.com. Always really good film breakdown, video analysis. Taking a look at linebackers in the draft today. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Full court Cleveland straight ahead. Stay with us on Sports4CLE. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers here on Sports4CLE. Cavs haven't played great since the All-Star break. Still a 4.5 game lead on the Celtics with 10 left to play. Getting ready to play the Spurs tonight at Rocket Arena. Tim Bontemps from the Hoops Collective, some of the things that he believes have led to the Cavs' struggles since the All-Star break.
No disrespect to the three-point defense, which it is very heavily influenced by variance. I think this is the problem for the Cavs overall. Since the All-Star break in 13 games, Donovan Mitchell shooting 39% from the field and 28% from three on 8 attempts per game. Before the All-Star break, you're shooting 45 and 39. Since the All-Star break, Darius Garland shooting 39% from the field and 31% from three on 7.5 attempts per game. Before the All-Star break, you're shooting 49.8 and 43 from the field. That is the problem with the Cavs. Their 2-star guards for the past month have been way below where they were the prior 4 months of the season. And that's the thing I think you have to monitor going forward, especially with Donovan, because we have seen in the past when he's had these core muscle injuries, it's given him a lot of trouble. And, obviously, them losing 3 or 4 games in March with a bazillion game lead in the East, I'm not really too concerned about. But extended struggles for those guys going into the playoffs, that is something I think that's a little more concerning.
With that, let's welcome in Sam Amico, hoopswire.com, co-host of Full Court Cleveland. Sammy, I agree with Tim Bontemps, and I don't always say that.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty accurate assessment of where I stand as well. I would say, Dave, that's right on. They seem to be kind of, and again, they had just won 16 straight before that 4-game slide. But yeah, Donovan Mitchell has really, really struggled shooting the basketball in March. Darius Garland did for a little bit there, kind of come around lately. He looked good the other night in Portland. But that's been their primary issue is, you need those two guys making shots. You don't need them shooting 50, 60% from the field. But as Tim Bontemps said, Donovan Mitchell was shooting 45% before the break. And you need him up over 40%. To really get, and that's why they haven't had the typical Cavaliers that we were so used to seeing during that 16-game winning streak. Although they did it in Utah and Portland, they haven't been doing it as regularly, and that's really because they're not making the same amount of shots that they were making maybe 2 or 3 months ago. But again, you can kind of excuse this to being the dog days of summer. Of the season a little bit, and tired legs, brutal road trip, and just, kind of waiting for the playoffs to get here. And really, if you're the Cavs, the mindset has to be, or probably is right now, just do well enough to beat who you should beat, maintain that number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, and try to keep everybody healthy along the way.
Yeah, get the legs rested, and that's 10 games left in the regular season. They're up 4.5 on the Celtics. Getting ready to play the Spurs tonight. What do you want to see the last 10 games of the regular season, other than nobody getting banged up to any significant level?
Yeah, I think the thing you want to see is they're balancing winning games, trying to win games, beat these opponents you should beat. For instance, the San Antonio Spurs at home. Spurs are obviously limping toward the finish line. They've got, Victor Wembanyama out for the year, De'Aaron Fox out for the year, lost Greg Popovich at the start of the year. So, they're kind of getting ready to play the lottery here. I would say more than anything with the Cavs, we're seeing that they're resting Evan Mobley against San Antonio. They rested him. their last home game, which was a loss to Orlando. So, you want to be able to rest guys while still winning games, trying to stay somewhat sharp and get yourself. It's a fine line. You want to keep guys healthy, but you also want to stay sharp heading into the postseason. You don't want to feel like you backed into the playoffs as the #1 seed. So I think it's a balancing act, and they've done a pretty good job. That trip was just brutal. A couple of the teams that they played, the Clippers, who they're going to see again on Sunday, just shot the lights out. I don't think the Cavs did anything wrong that game. It's just the Clippers just wouldn't miss. And, even Kenny Atkinson said, we just fell victim to some elite shot making. So, the Cavs are going to have to be cognizant, Dave, of the fact that these are playoff games for a lot of their opponents, like the Clippers coming up, the Pistons in Detroit coming up. So, they've got to be aware of that. But at the same time, you kind of want to take it easy to get that number until you get that #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Then you can really rest guys.
What are you most curious to see with the Cavs in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think that first game, you think about whoever they play, whether it's Orlando, Atlanta, Chicago, you assume it's going to be one of those teams, potentially Miami. What you want to see is I'm really curious to see that first game. Are you going to come out and be the team that won 15 games to open the season straight, 16 games later in the year, 12 games in between that straight? Where the ball was moving, the defense was sharp. I think that they're waiting for that day when they can finally just open the playoffs and get back to being, not just a team that's really good, but a team that's utterly dominant. And I'd like to see how they fare in that first playoff game. It's obviously going to be at Rocket Arena. And, do you come out sharp and dominate and set the tone and say, hey, these are the Cavaliers for the NBA postseason. You better watch out.
What do you think the biggest difference is between last year and this year with the Cavs?
First of all, Evan Mobley's taken his game to another level, which is what everybody was kind of saying he needed to do. He's taken it up 2 levels offensively. Defensively, he was already elite, but I would say he's better defensively this year than he's ever been, and he was already pretty good. So that's the first thing. The second thing to me, really, obviously, we talk about the core 4 with Mobley, Mitchell, Garland, and Jared Allen, but the key to me and the reason they're having so much success has been the play of their reserves. And that's not just DeAndre Hunter and Ty Jerome, who could be in the running for 6th man of the year, but it's guys like Sam Merrill, Dean Wade, Isaac Okoro turned that game against Portland the other day with his defense. Those guys who are doing the intangibles, Max Strus obviously included in that group, the guys that are doing the intangibles have just taken their level of play to another stratosphere this year. And Dave, that's how you win playoff games on the road. Mm-hmm. Your bench and your role players, those guys need to play well on the road because your stars are always going to play well for the most part. And in order to win road games in the playoffs, you need it from your bench and your reserves. And those guys have been getting the job done all season. And I think that's what really gives them a lot of hope to get to the finals.
The other thing is, Sam, in along those lines, Kenny Atkinson has played 10, sometimes 11 guys, and I think it's with the playoffs in mind because your rotation is going to shrink in the playoffs. It just is.
Yeah.
But when you call on guys, they have to be ready, and because you've played so many during the regular season, that naturally lends to guys kind of being ready when their number's called.
Yeah, if you think about how like Sam Merrill started the other night in Portland, he's gotten minutes as a starter. Dean Wade's gotten minutes as a starter. DeAndre Hunter, Ty Jerome, all of these guys have been in big situations, whether it's starting, filling in for an injured or resting starter, or whether it's playing big minutes at crunch time off the bench. We've seen games where Jared Allen will go to the bench a little bit in the fourth quarter or a lot, and DeAndre Hunter will finish the game. So the fact that they're able to do this and guys have been very good in 8 minutes, 12 minutes. That's what you're looking for, and that's what you're going to see in the playoffs. The starters are probably going to play a few more minutes than they're playing in the regular season, and your core guys, your top 6 or 7 guys, are going to play more minutes. But the guys who are 8th, 9th, and 10th, they've got to be good in those 12 minutes. They can't just come in and kill time and get some cardio. They've got to come in and be good, and I think that's where the Cavs, again, we have seen that all season. And yeah, I think a big credit is not just the players, but also Kenny Atkinson and the coaching staff, because they're using their players, maximizing them in the system, getting the most out of their guys. So I think it's been, so far so great for 95% of the season. I think you'll take that heading into the playoffs.
All right, before I let you go, I know you wrote an article, kind of Darius Garland, talking about his mindset coming into the season. Take us through that article and what you found out.
Yeah, with Darius, it was admittedly last year lost his joy for playing, because of the broken jaw. He has talked about that. He said, I couldn't eat for, 8 weeks. I'm living, sitting around. I can't move around too much. My jaw's wired shut. And he really made a point of it. Like, I heard the narrative last season that Darius Garland needs to be traded. He's not what he once was. And his mindset coming in was, I was looking at this year as kind of a revenge tour. And you know what? He's been better than he's ever been in his NBA career. And that says something, because he made the All-Star before this year. He made it a couple years ago, but then seemed to take a step back. Injuries obviously had a lot to do with that. So he kind of called this season his revenge tour. And, the thing that he wanted to start, or the way he wanted to get that started, Dave, was simply by changing his mindset and being happy again. And his word is the joy. I made sure that the joy of playing basketball has returned. And that's really been, you can see it out there on the court. He's having a lot of fun. Winning helps, but I think the fact that Darius Garland is more relaxed and has a better belief in himself is a big reason why they're 58-14 and number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference.
It'll be interesting to see what playoff Darius Garland shows up, because if he plays like he has most of the year, it's going to be a happy and long playoff run. Sam Amico, appreciate it as always. Thanks very much, Sam.
All right, Dave, thanks a lot for having me. We will chat at you soon.
Sounds good. Sam Amico, make sure you check him out. Always great stuff. Hoopswire.com. He is also the co-host of Full Court Cleveland. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.